ghosts, cryptids, and murder.
We will be covering Appalachia. If you see something, no, you didn't. If you hear something, no, you didn't.
Hi.
Hello.
This is Two Girls, One Ghost.
2 girls, 1 ghost. And we are your ghostesses. That is fidgety Corinne over there.
Yeah. Sorry.
And I am wolf leopard Sabrina.
And I'm fucked up after that story we heard on Campfire Stories last night. I didn't sleep. Did you? I woke up constantly.
I slept like a baby.
I was constantly waking up thinking I was going to see that girl just like hovering by the side of my bed.
So this is Campfire Stories from February 18th, 2025, which is a Patreon exclusive experience. But we had a listener.
What was his name? Nia. Oh my God. Nia came in and he was just so chill. He was just like, oh, this is my first time. Like I have a ghost story for you.
Yeah.
And then he starts to tell us that he watched the movie The Ring when he was little. It scared him so bad that he started to have visions of the girl from The Ring, which he thought, that was just like a nightmare, being scared as a little kid. But it quickly manifested into something else. And he has been stalked for years by the sleep paralysis demon that will literally like reach out from the ground, hug his waist and rip him down, his astral body, like into the ground.
And the craziest part is that to this day, he finds long strands of black hair everywhere around his house. And it
was around his bed. That's what fucked me up, was because you asked him, do you still see her?
Right.
And he said, no, I haven't experienced her or seen her for a long time. The only weird thing is every once in a while, I find a few long strands of black hair around my bed.
The only weird thing.
And he said it like, oh, this
so
isn't
casual.
Scary. Like, this is just, I haven't seen her. This is the only thing that happened. So I was like, that is the scariest part of the story.
All of us in Campfire Stories were jaw dropped. What the fuck?
And it was the last story of Campfire Stories. It was like he gave us that freaking bomb of a ghost story. And then was like, good night.
Yeah, there's some sleep paralysis demon that has manifested as his terrifying fear of the girl in the ring, Samara. But you know what? I had a worse dream. My dream, it was the biggest fight we've ever had.
You and me?
Yeah.
What did we fight
and
about?
I woke up like sad.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sabrina.
I really, honestly,
What was the fight? Do you remember the details?
I don't remember the details, but I remember like the drama of you walked out of the room carrying the microphone, like trailing the cords behind it. And I was like, you're bringing your laptop and all of our cameras with you.
Wow, that's really dramatic.
It was dramatic. And then you were like, well, we have to stop the podcast. And I was like, Corinne, this is the first fight we've ever had. We can get through this.
I'm so curious what we were fighting about. Because I can't even conjure up an idea of what a fight would be right now.
I have no idea. But that's not why we're here. And also, we're not fighting. It was a dream.
Although now I'm like panicked. I'm like, stop being mad at me.
Shoot, I shouldn't have told you. Now you're mad.
Stop being mad at me.
The fight is about the fight in the dream.
Oh my God.
Why don't you remember the details?
Oh, that's
Anyway.
like when I was pregnant and it wasn't even a dream. It was just a waking intrusive thought that I made up in my mind that Brian smashed the wedding cake in my face when he didn't. And I was mad at him for days.
About something that didn't happen.
No.
There is some stuff that really does happen.
Yeah.
In a very specific, massive region of the United States and Canada. And technically, it crosses a border into property that is owned by France. So,
wow.
In 3 different
The French
countries.
Canadians
Yeah, those
also
French
get a little
Canadians.
dabble of this
Spookiness.
majestic and terrifying place.
And I'm going to go ahead and let you say it so that you remind me how to say it properly. And all of y'all don't yell at me.
Well, there's 2 ways. The majority of people and the people in the South, I think, say Appalachia.
Appalachia.
But in the Northeast, we say Appalachia.
Yes. Appalachia. We will say it as Appalachia.
We'll go with the popular vote.
Today and for the next 2 weeks, so 3 weeks of episodes, we will be covering Appalachia. I feel like we should do like ominous, really terrifying music.
It's a very scary place.
Where all of you in your cars right now start to hear your name being whispered to you.
If you hear that, I don't know what to do, but
No, you
didn't.
No, you didn't.
That's the rule of the Appalachian.
We're calling you. If you see something, no, you didn't. If you hear something, no, you didn't. Part 1 of this 3-part series is going to be about the history, some lore, and superstitions, and we're gonna like dabble in some creepy things that we learn about Appalachia or the Appalachian Mountains. And then part 2 will be ghost stories, and part 3 will be creatures
and cryptids. And then, of course, in our research, because I feel like there's 3 things we think about when we think about the Appalachian Mountain Range and the Appalachian Trail. It's ghosts, cryptids, and murder.
Yes.
Some murders we found were pretty intertwined with hauntings, but they deserved their own spotlight. So, hint, hint, sometime in the next few months, you'll get a taste of those.
I do feel like because the Appalachian Mountains are such a long, I mean, I'll get into specifics, but it's 2,050 miles of mountain range, that it kind of does encompass so much of the United States that I feel like so many paranormal stories can fall within the Appalachian category.
Yeah, no, I've been in the mountains before many times, not even realizing like, oh, I'm actively, like if you don't think about it, it's kind of like in Massachusetts, there's another location, the Bridgewater Triangle. I feel like unless you're actively thinking, oh my gosh, I'm in the Bridgewater Triangle, you're just at a Target.
Right. But there are some areas that are a little bit more spooky, and we'll just get into the history, why don't we?
Yeah, great.
All right. Stretching across 2,050 miles of land and sea, the Appalachian Mountains extend from Alabama, USA, to a small island off the coast of Newfoundland, Canada, and it's called Bell Island. Like, this is massive.
Yeah, and ancient.
And I'm going to get into that in a second. It is the oldest mountain range in North America, and as we'll learn in the next 3 episodes, it is a place that blurs the line of reality, bends time, and transcends through various cultures. And again, if you're unfamiliar with this region, although I feel like a lot of you are familiar, there is one very important rule that we stated up in the beginning. If you see something, no, you didn't. There will be a quiz at the end of this episode.
Yeah, there's just 2 lines to remember to survive the Appalachia.
So we're going to do some quick facts, and then I'm going to do history. Corinne, you'll jump into superstitions and omens.
Yeah.
Okay. Quick facts. The Appalachian Mountains date back some 480 million years ago.
That number, I just can't even, it doesn't compute in my brain.
It's pre-dinosaurs, pre-Pangea. Truly, when fish start appearing on Earth is when the beginning of the formation of these mountains begins. Because there's also,
so wild.
There's collisions, there's eruptions, there's erosion, and then recolliding.
Why am I suddenly scared? An asteroid's going to come and completely kill the Appalachia like it did the dinosaurs. I'm scared for it, even though I know that it's here.
You're not worried about yourself?
No, I was thinking in the past, but I was
Okay, so I'll just jump right into the geology because we're talking about it. Okay. The Appalachian Mountains are one of the most geologically complex mountain ranges on Earth. It formed, eroded, erupted, and evolved into the mountains we know today. And it starts some 500 million years ago. So 480 million years ago. One tectonic plate slid under another, creating a massive stratovolcanoes that over time eroded into basically like gravel. Then 400 million years ago, those 2 same plates slammed back into each other, forming huge, really jagged, scary looking mountains. Then again, there was another slamming of mountains 290 million years ago.
Slamorama.
When what is now the African tectonic plate and the North America one collided into each other again. And this caused all of that gravel and previous jagged mountains to roll and fold over each other and form the mountains that we know they are today. So they're not really sharp mountains anymore. They're the rolling hills.
Yeah. Another weird fact about the Appalachia that just kind of, I feel like speaks to how spooky this place is that it's no longer growing. It's basically dead and slowly. We're watching it slowly die and wither away.
That's weird. Like the rocks?
But yeah, it's on its descent.
It's shrinking like old age. That's weird. But if you're a rock nerd, the Appalachian Mountains are made of so many different types of rocks, and you can look at photos that have the sedimentary, igneous, and metamorphic. But it's also
you need to go back to space and science class in high school.
I really do.
So do I.
I really do. But these rocks are ancient. And we have talked about energy and crystals and how crystals carry energy. So think about all of these different rocks that have been here from beginning of time that now are making up this beautiful, massive mountain range and are holding on to history, holding on to energy, holding on to death of dinosaurs, death of so many creatures.
It's seen the bloodiest of wars in America.
Exactly. There are large gemstone deposits, so we're talking about lots of energy. And since then, weather has also shaped the mountains as they are today, like ice, rain, wind has evolved so many different regions of the mountains. But I do have a couple more quick facts, and then we'll talk about the different regions of the mountains. So the highest peak of the mountain range is Mount Mitchell in North Carolina, and that is 6,684 feet and shrinking, apparently. The term Appalachia refers to several different regions associated with the mountain range. As of 2022, the population of people living in this region, Appalachian region, was 26.4 million across 423 counties and 13 states. The mountain range is home to the Appalachian Trail, a 2,175-mile hiking trail, which runs from Springer Mountain, Georgia, to Mount Katahdin in Maine. And it's estimated that roughly 3 million people hike that trail per year.
Whoa. I still want to do it.
Which is so strange to me.
I know. I don't even like camping.
Yeah, I can't imagine you doing 2,000 miles.
One day I will.
So many people quit.
That will probably be what I do.
Yeah.
That will probably be what I do.
I do quit. So countless hikers, residents, and visitors have encountered something otherworldly. Because when it comes to the Appalachian region, it is home to much more than hiking, much more than mountains, and much more than humans. It is home to numerous ghosts, rumored cave systems, real cave systems, cryptids, monsters, legends. We're talking ghost trains, Bigfoot, Mothman, the Apple Devil, which is like a baby Bigfoot who likes apples.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Where is it? In New Hampshire?
I'm not sure, but we could.
Seems like a place.
Yeah, probably.
For an apple-loving Bigfoot.
Mysterious Lights, the Wampus Cat, Smokewold, Ravenmocker, the Bell Witch, Tennessee Wildman, the Grassman, the Bone Lady, Spearfinger, and so much more.
Oh, I'm so curious about the Bone Lady.
I know. Spearfinger is actually a very interesting one too.
Now our list is bigger for what we need to research.
So much.
Yeah. Many of these we have touched though.
We have. Not in real life, but upon verbal touching. Why does that sound weird?
AKA we did episodes on them.
We verbally spoke and touched about them.
We verbally touched them.
I hope we're verbally touching you right now.
Oh my God.
Okay, so
are we still in your dream? Or are we about to get in a fight?
I really hope not. I wore a cute outfit for this isn't a fight outfit. This is I feel very Kesha-like actually.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do feel that way. I'm going to tell you how you feel.
Validate everything so that we don't get in a fight. Okay, so there might be some of you who are listening and watching and you're like, I don't believe in any of that stuff. I'm not going to argue with you, but you are wrong. And that's not an argument. That's just a fact. But it's okay. There are some more tangible, real in your mind. I'm mad at you.
Wow. You are starting a fight.
Whoever I'm verbally touching right now, I'm sorry.
Oh, can you feel the energy?
I think if there's one thing I learned through researching this topic, it's to respect the lore, to respect the creatures, the superstitions that live upon this land. And if you don't,
they'll come for you.
And they're coming through me to you, touching you with words. Anyway, if you're smugging, here's something more tangible to frighten you. Because there is a lot of death and disappearance lurking in the Appalachian trails and mountain region. The trail itself can be treacherous, weather is unpredictable, cell service is limited, access to aid is limited, and every year people go missing without a trace in the Appalachian Mountains. On average, since 1974, there has been one murder for every 4 years. So every 4 years, there's a murder on average.
Which feels like so many, but there has only been, 15 murders in total or something since it's been opened?
Right. And is that on the trail specifically?
I think on the trail specifically.
But yeah, in the next couple of episodes, we'll dive deeper into some of these legends, ghost stories, and cryptids. But I wanted to talk about the regions. So there are 3 regions that it's technically broken up into. People debate upon where the demarcations of each region is, but there's the Southern Appalachians, where winds have reached record-breaking numbers like 231 miles per hour. The hiking trails are pretty far from civilization, which is maybe why people associate the southern area of Appalachia to be more of the Appalachian lore legend area.
Yeah.
Because it is further from civilization.
Right. Even though interspersed throughout this mountain range, which is a giant mountain range, there are some very huge cities with large populations.
Yeah. But the southern Appalachians is a great place to get lost or, taken by some interdimensional beings. Then there's the Middle Atlantic States region, which is an area very rich with Civil War history and a lot of Civil War ghosts. There are a lot of old coal mines, and this area does have more access to civilization, generally speaking. And then there's the northern New England Appalachians with extreme weather, and it's also home to the most isolated portion of the trail. So not the entire trail in the northern area, but there's a portion of it that is the most isolated.
Is it the section that's in Maine?
I'm not sure. But I think Mount Washington is part of the Appalachians, and it has the coldest weather recorded up at the top of that mountain.
Yeah, just a couple years ago, the temperature at the top of Mount Washington reached colder than planet Mars.
Yep. So hike on up there.
Yeah. And if you're a Patreon member, we did an entire episode about the Hotel Mount Washington and some of the wild stuff that happened in and around that area to contribute to the hauntings. We've touched literally just Mount Washington maybe 3 times on this.
Is that Betty and Barney Hill?
No, but they're not far away.
Okay. So we've done a lot of Appalachian episodes.
Yes.
Regardless of the separate regions, the mountain range is unified through a shared history, culture, and folklore. And today's culture around the Appalachians is a blended history created by native tribes, colonizers, settlers, white people, Europeans, and enslaved peoples brought to the area, which I think is pretty cool. Like, you can almost dissect a lot of these legends and superstitions and realize what culture it came from.
Who brought it over.
And who brought it.
There's such a rich history of Native people in the Northeast section too. There were a lot concentrated in just this one region.
Yes. So it all begins with the Native people.
Great.
They were the earliest pioneers of the mountains who possessed the utmost respect for the land and the spirits that possessed it. Their beliefs have become the foundation for Appalachian lore and the superstitions and omens surrounding them to this day. And a lot of it was shared through song and storytelling. The Cherokee was the largest tribe in the area. They called the Great Smoky Mountains Shikanahay, which means land of blue smoke, because there's this mist that seems to roll in and cover the entire mountains in a very ominous and spooky way.
Probably inspiring Stephen King and his many novels.
Literally, The Mist.
The Mist.
Yeah. There are also a lot of different subgroups of the Iroquois tribes, the Lenni Lenape, Mohawk, and so many others. But the Cherokee are considered the primary indigenous people of Appalachia, deeply rooted in the southern region, settling back in the area back in 12,000 BCE.
Whoa.
Yeah. They were hunter-gatherers living off the land, honoring the land, and respecting it. Key words there. So they really believed establishing harmony with the spirits and the land. And there's a lot of legends that we've talked about here on Two Girls, One Ghost that they do not like to talk about out of respect. So there's a lot of creatures that speaking their name is almost conjuring them up or showing disrespect to them.
Yep.
A lot of the superstitions come from Native American cosmologies, belief in powerful nature spirits, and that nature is a living, breathing entity filled with magic, which I believe too.
This is, again, just reminding me of campfire stories last night. We had a story from a reservation where there was a lot of strange beasts coming and knocking.
Exactly. Many of their beliefs and legends they shared emphasized interconnectedness between humans and nature and warnings of disturbing that order. Which, speaking of disturbing that order, that is where the settlers, European settlers, came in. I think the first groups were the Spanish and French explorers who came in the 1500s.
And also, just to interrupt, this is going to be a fact with no real facts behind it. But part of the reason why there's so much debate as to how to pronounce Appalachia versus Appalachia, et cetera, is that it's thought that there was a tribe that the French had first encountered, and they were calling these mountains something that sounded like Appalachia, and the French kind of
had a problem pronouncing it, and then,
added a little sparkle.
Yeah.
And so then it just kind of as different groups settled it it kind of morphed and changed.
And evolved, yeah.
But that's why people want to go back to Appalachia, because they feel that it's the closest to what the indigenous tribes had called the mountains.
Okay,
yeah.
That makes sense. But so these groups who came were coming and looking for freedom, like autonomy. Like, yes, they were exploring and probably trying to colonize for their countries, but they also were looking for some type of freedom from the countries that they felt were a little bit more controlling. So when they came across,
they were saying "fuck you, Dad," and moving as far away as they possibly could.
Yeah. So when they found the Appalachian region, they were like, "Ooh, this is a perfect place for us to run free and run wild." But it wasn't really theirs.
No, and also they were wholly unprepared.
Yes, extremely difficult to live in this region. So with them, they brought disease and disrespect of the land, leading to many natives being displaced and even the erasure of entire tribes and cultures. But the mountain range remembers, and the people quickly learned the power it held, because greed is a hungry, ravenous, insatiable monster, perhaps scarier than any ghost in the region.
Mm-hmm.
But it is interesting because a lot of legends and some lore around this region seems to represent that greed. More and more people started settling here during the 16th and 17th centuries. There was a real fusion of various cultures because now it was the natives, the settlers, and then enslaved people from Africa that they were bringing over. And there was this like amalgamation of beliefs now blending into one another. These groups did heavily rely on each other, despite also trying to push each other out because, like you said, it was incredibly hard to live in this area.
Yeah.
Survival was based on an ability to hunt, to fish, to farm. And so these traditions—
of which the white people had none.
No knowledge. Right. So these traditions of farming and hunting and fishing and foraging were passed down. There's also so many plants, flora, and fauna that are native to the Appalachians that the natives knew. They knew how to cultivate. They knew how to like use the medicinal properties that they passed on.
And this is one of my little ADHD interests that I've gotten super into. But the indigenous way of gardening is so fascinating. And I am so like craving this summer to come because I want to try it, because it's against the traditional way that we see where you like plow the beds and the sun is there. They utilize all of the land. So it's like the tree, and then below the tree, there's all of these different things. So like you'd walk in, basically like you would walk into a forest and not know that you were actually
in a garden
that would feed you and sustain you, which is part of the problem, because then the white people came in and were like chopping the trees down, plowing all the shit. And it's like, you're getting rid of the food source.
Right. You're ruining it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And making it now harder for all of us to survive. Also, I read this book for this episode. It's called The Appalachian Folklore Unveiled. And it is by Darkness Prevails with Carmen Carrion.
Ooh, I like that name.
I know.
Carmen Carrion.
It's like, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
Yes, it does feel that way.
Like that. But in that book, it mentions farming and gardening around the moon cycles, which I thought was interesting. Like, I think it was the waxing moon is good for planting. Waning moon is good for harvesting.
To be able to survive this area, you also need to be able to kind of open yourself up to kind of the supernatural elements of the area too. It's not just this black and white.
Right. You have to listen to the nature spirits.
There's so much interconnectedness with nature and the soul and your own physical body.
So a lot of these residents and like the history in the Appalachia has to do with overcoming adversity, because survival was very difficult. And then surviving different groups of people coming in was really difficult. And a lot of these stories of overcoming adversity are told through legend and lore and superstitions, specifically in music and in storytelling and in poetry. And the Appalachian region was actually the birthplace of folk and bluegrass, and the banjo is the heartbeat of the region. Is there a banjo in here?
I was doing the chords from Deliverance.
Is that the one with Leo?
I'm thinking of the one, it came out a while ago. It probably was a movie from like the 80s maybe.
Oh.
But it's a horror movie, and it's about this group of guys, and they set out on like a hike or camping trip, and they get kind of lost in the southern part of, I think, the Appalachia. And they basically get hunted down by these really gross people who do really terrible things to them.
That is not what I was thinking of, and it is not what I have ever seen.
When you watch it, you'll never forget the banjo being played in the one scene.
But like I said, the banjo is the heartbeat. And because music was such a big part of culture and still is in this area, it's not uncommon to hear music emanating throughout the mountain when it's not actually really being played currently.
Interesting. I'm so curious about what type of music too, because sorry to side tangent again, but when I went to the Boone Plantation in South Carolina and did the tour there was a Gullah woman who was talking about kind of like when slaves were on that property and just how ingrained song was and how they would speak to each other through song, plan escapes through song.
Right.
And so I'm so curious about like how much song is just like stained in this land because that's also a way that they survived and helped each other escape was through music.
Spreading messages. Yeah. Damn. That's so interesting. Yeah, what if you don't understand what the song is, but it's actually coded message?
Right. Like we think it's the spooky, scary song, but really it's a song to save you.
Ooh.
The mountains are calling.
Here's what I'll say. Don't go looking for the source of the music.
That's true. Don't. Just keep wondering.
Yeah. So the stories today that we hear and we'll be talking about in the next couple of episodes, like the ghosts, cryptids, or mysterious tunnels, do come from a fusion of Native American folklore blended with Christian beliefs, a lot of fear of witchcraft, combined with African root work and spirits that came with them from their homelands. So I'm going to share like a couple little small stories that are evidence of that. Okay, so there's a story of the Lost Colony, and not of Roanoke. It's a different one. And it's a Cherokee legend about a group of white settlers who disappeared in the mountains due to supernatural forces. And so some people are like, okay, is it like a story of how they wish things had happened? Or did they wipe out a group of white settlers? Or, you know, can this be interpreted as the lore version of something that actually happened?
Maybe, but I just fully believe that there are beasts within this mountain. And if there's a group of 30 settlers, easy.
Gone.
Poof. They hear a baby crying in the woods. They all go to investigate. You're done.
Don't investigate. There is an African legend that was told through the region that deals with trying to triumph over oppression and evil, which you can very clearly understand why. But it is the story of Anansi, a spider. And this spider is tiny, 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 tiny. But despite its tiny size, this spider is able to stay alive using his wits to outsmart those who could crush him and trick his oppressors into their own demise. So again, another legend that you can understand where it came from.
He went up the water spout, but he didn't do it again. Just once.
There's also the story of the cannibal woman. It's basically a story of a woman who's depicted as a monstrous creature, but she turns into this due to her extreme hunger, which depicts the way of life in the Appalachians and the difficulty of surviving. And then you covered the Moon-Eyed people in episode 261 of our podcast. And that legend, just briefly to touch on it again, we'll link it in the show notes or in YouTube if you're watching. Like it'll be like, hey, go watch this episode. The legend goes that there's a small group of pale-skinned, blue-eyed humanoid creatures that live in a cave system beneath the mountains that are nocturnal. And their eyes are so blue and so light that they cannot be in the sun, which is what turned them into nocturnal creatures. But there are some people who believe that the Moon-Eyed people actually represent the European colonizers. Other people believe the story predates their time entirely. And it has actually evolved over time because theory and legend of people living in mountains in tunnels has evolved into a new version, which is more current, or I guess like the Moon-Eyed people feels very historic. It goes back in time. And then now today there's another iteration of that story that's not called the Moon-Eyed people, and it feels more evolved into a whitewashed Western version. But also these mountains are massive, so who knows? But there's another iteration of this, that there is a complex tunnel system running beneath the mountain and trail that was rumored to hold a secret military base. And they were conducting experiments. Some people say on humans, some people say on otherworldly beings like aliens, or that they were creating monsters. And basically, in this laboratory, they created a bunch of Frankensteins, a group of people who hated their creators and fled. So they escaped the laboratory and they spent years and years in the mountains trying to hide from their creators, and eventually escaped into a complex tunnel system that they now still to this day live in and hide in and spend time in and haunt and creep. And if you happen upon one of these entrances to the caves, it's recommended that you do not go in there.
whether people believe in the backstory of this sort of science experiment or not, I think one thing that we have to fall back on is the literal fact that there are still species of animals we thought were extinct that are occasionally being spotted decades and decades, sometimes centuries later, in this mountain range.
Right.
So there is so much opportunity to remain hidden.
Or for aliens to repopulate certain species back in this area.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
That was Kai's email?
Yeah. Our listener went on a spaceship.
Kin?
Kin, yes.
Kin.
But we haven't seen Kin in a long time.
No, Kin, are you okay?
Do you still like us? Also, these tunnels, and I think you covered this, and it might have not necessarily been in the Appalachian Mountains, but like you did like a missing 411 episode.
Mm-hmm.
And there are all of these legends and lores of people who have disappeared or walked into these tunnels and then gone missing from the rest of their group. Some people are never found again. Some reappear in wildly different, very far away areas of the mountain. And they're like, I don't know how I got here.
Right. And oftentimes they're children that have no ability to actually traverse that terrain.
Wild. Yeah.
And have no evidence of them even walking like a foot in the dirt.
Right.
It is so crazy.
So those are some small examples of where you can like pinpoint where the stories came from, how they perhaps maybe evolved or how they were inspired by previous legends from, you know, the native tribes. But there's also directly related to wars and bloodshed or murders or disappearances where in the middle region of the Appalachias, people see the ghosts of Civil War soldiers.
Yeah.
And
think about how much cannibalism happened too with the early settlers
I love
in the Virginia
that's
area.
Where you jump to. You think about how much cannibalism there was.
People were eating people over in Virginia. And so we thought, great place for our state capital.
But yeah, so that's just the briefest of brief recaps of the history of the Appalachias. And there will be more.
Oh, yeah.
Coming your way.
Do you guys want to learn how to survive the Appalachia?
I do.
Okay.
Because, Corinne, you're getting ready to hike it.
I am. I genuinely think, I don't know if I'll do the full thing, but I think one day I will do. Maybe I'll do like a state by state thing where I get to a certain, maybe this is my retirement project.
That's fun.
Where each year I just do the trail for that one state and I just keep making my way.
I'm curious how long it takes to do the whole thing because there's also a trail in...
I think it's 2 months, isn't it?
Is it? There's a trail that goes through like Spain called the Camino that people walk, and it's more of like a religious... Yeah. I think anyone going on a long walk like that is a spiritual experience, but the Camino it's a pilgrimage of sorts.
And Spain's also a hell of a lot smaller than this region.
Yeah.
Okay. Appalachia. It is the heart of one of the most mysterious and storied regions of America, a place where folklore is more than just a story. It is survival, where the mountains keep their secrets and those who listen closely might just hear the echoes of something otherworldly. We're calling you. The mountains, peaks, and hollows have cradled generations of settlers, wanderers, those who call the wild home, as Sabrina covered. And despite encompassing many, many states here in America and hosting some of the most populated towns and cities, Appalachia has a ton of untouched land.
Mm-hmm.
And with
there's also like rumors of like cannibals living in there.
I was literally, that was my next sentence. Was like, yeah, with all of the rural communities, there's so many talks of these wild men and cannibals. And basically these groups of actual humans that stalk the rogue hiker, find a camper, and, you know, what happens? Contributes to the missing people every year.
Yeah. Hey, Corinne's always said she wanted to go off the grid and live in the woods. And
maybe I get
she loves Bigfoot. And
I get absorbed
feel like
into one of these tribes.
You'll be the leader of the cannibalism tribe.
I'm the cannibalistic tribe version of, what's the movie that I'm thinking of where they dance around the maypole and they burn the guy in the bear suit?
Midsummer. Pugh. Yeah.
Midsummer.
Yeah.
Okay. I loved your thought bubble. It was so
like what I did.
Like fairy-esque. I was like, what are you conjuring up?
I was conjuring Florence Pugh.
So if you live in these mountains, you must survive these mountains and all that comes with it. But along with the people who made the Appalachia their home came their beliefs, their fears, and their traditions. But it goes beyond that because it's not something that they just created themselves. There are creatures in the woods. There are spirits in the woods. And sightings have dated back as long as humans have lived along these mountains. The Cherokee spoke of some of these strange beasts. You mentioned some of them, like the Wampus beast, which is said to be this fearsome feline beast with glowing eyes and eerie human-like scream.
Meow!
Cute!
Yeah, don't be fooled by the name. Wampus cat does sound cute, but no.
No, but also the pictures of it, I'm like, is this just like a jaguar? Do we have jaguars still here?
Maybe.
Hikers and campers have reported feeling watched, hearing unnatural growls in the night, and sometimes glimpsing a pair of glowing eyes just beyond the trees. The tribe also spoke of a shape-shifting Bigfoot with black fur and white eyes, able to take form as an animal or a human, baiting people to come closer and then feasting on their hearts. Good soup. You may notice some southern Appalachian homes were built with the haint blue color around doors and windows. And this is a tradition that is rooted in the belief that spirits cannot cross water. And so the pale blue that is painted here is basically a way of, the spirit comes up to your house and they're like, whoa, no, I can't traverse this water source. Right. I must turn around.
Right.
Some other people say that it confuses them, not because it's a water source, but because it's the sky. It's the color of the sky. So they don't realize necessarily that it's a home. They're like, oh no.
That was actually a theme in when I did the Possessions in India episode. There was that one town where they painted everything blue and white to represent the sky as well, to confuse the demons.
What episode was it that I did? There was a good chunk of haint blue covered in it, where it was like,
Jamie?
Was it like Tokalosh or something like that?
Oh.
No, well, that was in Africa.
I don't know.
It was something about.
But again,
some creature going through the keyholes.
But this wasn't. I think the haint blue was an African belief brought here.
Okay, well, so
I think that
makes sense.
Yeah.
So we probably talked about it multiple times.
Yeah.
So people paint their houses blue and their porches blue, but some spirits are not so easily fooled. Many speak of creatures whose names should not be said aloud, so their aliases are often used, like the Windy Boy or the Flesh Pedestrian. You can Google those if you want to know the real name of the creatures. Yeah. They stalk their prey, they shapeshift, they throw their voices to try anything to lure you in. And when that doesn't work, they stalk your home, circling, knocking, crying,
staring
whistling,
at your windows at night.
Whatever they can to get
sometimes
you outside.
Your second story window where there's no way they should be that high up.
No, but some of them are quite tall too. So the main rules of surviving in the Appalachia are: if you hear something, no, you didn't. If you see something, no, you didn't.
No, you didn't.
Ignore the sounds of the crying baby. Ignore what sounds like a man saying hello. Ignore the sounds of a woman screaming.
When you hear your name, ignore it.
Ignore it. If you hear a whistle, ignore it. And for the love of God, do not whistle back.
That gives me the heebie-jeebies because there's just so many things that you hear in the woods already.
And if you're on a trail,
I'd be so on edge.
It's natural too, if you're hearing someone whistle, to just turn your head and look.
Yeah.
Or if you hear your name. So in Appalachia, folklore and superstition run deep, with many traditions passed down through generations to protect others against ghosts, spirits, and other supernatural beings and cryptids. We broke this down into a few categories. So how to avoid malevolent beings. Do not look over your shoulder if your name is called. If you hear your name in the woods or at night, but you don't see anyone, also you shouldn't even look to see if you see anyone, just turn around and slowly, calmly go back to where you came from. Your home, your car. Do not look around. Also, do not run. They love a chase.
The worst is if you're camping and that happens. You're stuck.
Never speak of the devil at night. Talking about the devil or evil spirits after dark supposedly summons them and invites them to wherever you are. It's a good way to get their attention. So do you want the attention of the devil?
Maybe.
If you don't speak of them at night.
Maybe.
Do not open the door at night for knocking sounds. So if there's an unexplained knock at your door and you peek out the window and you do not see anyone, never, ever, ever open your door.
I do feel like our generation already feels that way without the creepy superstition part of it.
In the middle of the day, if someone knocks on my door, I go down onto my floor and I lay there and I roll into a spot where no one could ever peek and see me through my windows, should they feel the need to see if I'm actually home.
Right.
I'm unavailable.
If you really need me and you know me, call me.
Call me, beep me if you want to reach me.
Do not knock on my door.
Bring back pagers. I want to be really inaccessible.
You already are.
I know. My phone is permanently on Do Not Disturb. I check my phone once a day.
Yeah.
Okay. Always go out the same door you came in. If you use a different door, it's believed that you're allowing negative entities to enter.
That one was really interesting to me because
I
I feel like I usually do go in and out the same door, but I just was surprised by that.
Yeah, because it almost feels like if we take the trickery associated with the haint blue paint color,
right?
I would assume that exiting and entering through different doors would be a confusion tactic and they wouldn't know where you are.
Right.
So it would be a good thing to do.
Right.
But it says not to.
Yeah.
Which is also like something, like if I think of the advice of like how to avoid a serial killer or whatever, where it's like change up your routine, don't have the same routine.
Right.
So again, it goes against
be predictable.
Don't be predictable.
But in regards to the Appalachians, be predictable about which door you go in and out of.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dogs howling at midnight. If you hear a dog howling at night, especially at midnight, it's often seen as an omen of death or that there's an unseen spirit nearby. Some people pray or light a candle to ward off bad luck when this happens.
It's interesting how many things are omens of.
Yeah. We did, again, there was a Patreon exclusive where we did New England superstitions, and there were just so many. And I know in your book, a lot of those were repeated that were the same as the New England ones, which probably makes sense because it's all along the same mountain range and certain
There were a lot of
groups.
like baby ones and a lot of apple related lores. It's interesting.
And if you want to avoid bad luck, never sweep after midnight.
Which, if you hate cleaning,
you shouldn't be sweeping after midnight because you should be too busy drinking your midnight margaritas.
There was one iteration of that where it was don't sweep after dark.
Ooh,
so
I like
work
that.
until the sun goes down and go home and be like, I can't sweep.
Yeah, you have to rest.
Yeah.
There are plenty of graveyards along the Appalachian region, especially because you alluded to just how much war there was, the Civil War and all of that. So there's
also many unmarked graves.
So many. But yeah, there's just heaps and heaps of dead bodies. So there's a few graveyard and death superstitions that you should know about. Hold your breath when passing a graveyard. Is this something you did as a kid?
I did.
Yeah, me too.
That and over a bridge.
I don't think I did the bridge one. It was just the graveyard. Some people believe that if you breathe while passing a cemetery, a wandering spirit may enter your body. So holding your breath prevents them from getting in.
It's a good one to follow.
Never take anything from the graveyard. If you pick flowers, take a stone, or even a little bit of dirt from a cemetery, it's considered to bring you bad luck or to invite the spirits back home with you. Leaving coins on graves. A coin left on the headstone can appease the spirits and show respect for the dead, ensuring that they don't follow you home. You can also leave flowers and other various trinkets to help appease them. But on your way out, just another piece of advice, never count the tombstones because it is said that that is also another way to summon the spirits back to you. Don't give them too much attention.
Right. Also, the amount of time, depending on the size of the cemetery, the amount of time it would take to count every single headstone is time consuming.
Yeah. I mean, it might not be but just when you walk by, don't go 1, 2, 3.
Oh, like you can't even do 1, 2, 3?
I don't think so.
Definitely done that. Just because my brain like counts things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you don't do all those things, or if you just want a little extra protection, here are some folk remedies and protections against spirits and ways to ward off evil. So we talked about the haint blue paint that you can do. Don't sweep after midnight or after dark. You can also leave a broom at the door. So placing a broom across the doorway or flipping it upside down behind the door is said to prevent spirits from entering the house.
Which I've started to do. And I think I learned that when we were at the Conjuring House.
Oh, maybe.
Because they had one above the door or by the door.
Oh, yeah. It's funny because there's also this sort of witchcraft belief that if you take your broom and you flip it upside down when you have company, your company will soon leave.
Yes.
So it's like...
Which you are all about.
Yeah, so you might be doing it for spirits, but I might be doing it for people.
Yeah, kicking people out.
Okay, time to go to bed. But yeah, so the thought is that some spirits will be so distracted counting the bristles on the broom that they won't come after you.
The ghosts are like me. They can't help but count.
They're so distracted. It's just like overstimulated by the world 24/7,
Yeah.
these spirits. Salt at the threshold. You can sprinkle some salt across the doorway and windowsills to keep spirits and witches from crossing into the home. Although some could say if you do any of these things, you are a witch.
Yeah. So you can't go into your own house.
Yeah. Some also place a line of salt around their bed for protection while sleeping. Never, ever whistle in the woods, especially at night.
Something will probably whistle back.
Whistling specifically at night is believed to attract unwanted supernatural attention, including ghosts, spirits, strange creatures like flesh pedestrians. There was a lot of talk about how Mothman has spent a lot of time in this mountain range. There's been many sightings as well. So you never really know what you're calling out to.
No.
Best not to. Horseshoes for protection. I think that this is something that you kind of like learn a horseshoe is good luck.
Yep.
So hanging a horseshoe above the doorway facing upwards. They said always facing upwards.
So like this?
Yes. It's believed to trap a good luck and keep evil spirits away. Carrying a silver coin or an iron nail. This feels very like vampire hunter. But many believe that silver and iron repel evil spirits. And then again, it says, and witches. And carrying one in your pocket or placing one near your bed provides protection. You can also hang bundles of dried mullein near doorways or windows to ward off evil spirits and negative energy. And you can also place black walnut branches or leaves around the home to safeguard against malevolent forces. So I like these because some of these are very easy to do because it's like some of the stuff is already in your own yard or amongst the land. It's like to protect yourself against what's creeping on the land, you also have to seek out the land.
The land will help you if you listen to it and respect it.
Moana. Okay, and then placing mirrors around your home. This is something we talk about so often because it's thought that if you place 2 mirrors facing each other in your house, it creates a portal. So most definitely don't do that. I'm adding that one in.
Right.
It wasn't listed though. It does say that a mirror facing the front door can reflect negative energy and spirits trying to enter.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's like using mirrors to help you.
Yes.
Because I feel like so much of the superstitions are like cover them up or don't look into them at certain times.
Right. So it says not to look at them at night, basically.
Fair.
In parts of the Appalachia, it's also suggested that you cover mirrors during a thunderstorm to prevent the energy from the storm from entering into your house or into anyone who looks in the mirror. So I'm like, could you be possessed by a literal thunderstorm? Or is it just
that would be so sick?
Right? Because I'm like, that sounds kind of interesting.
Or what if I came in and I only just went boom?
Yeah, when you open your mouth, it's just like crackling thunder and lightning. Oh, that would be so cool.
It'd be sick. It'd be sick for a day. And then after that, I'd be like, okay, can I have my voice back?
Like,
take your thunderstorm
mermaid. Back. Okay, so while we typically avoid mirrors at night, it's also said and believed that if you look into a mirror during a full moon, it's believed to enhance divination abilities or reveal glimpses of the future.
That's cool.
Yes. And being able to tap into your power like this and maybe get glimpses of the future and figure out what exactly is coming for you, that's a skill that could save you in Appalachia. So next week, we will introduce you to some of the spirits and haunted locations in Appalachia. But don't forget the rules. If you see something, no, you didn't. If you hear something, no, you didn't.
It's a good rule to follow. Maybe don't hike the trail.
It's a mind your own business type of place.
It is. It is. Keep in your lane. Stay in your lane.
But then also you really need to rely on your community at the same time. It's such a delicate balance of maneuvering and navigating the spirits, the land, your own community.
I think a lot of it's also being prepared, being respectful, knowing what you're getting yourself into, knowing the history, knowing who was here before you. I think that's important anywhere in the world.
Yeah. And also just an openness, because I feel like the people who go into places in Appalachia and they don't believe in something are oftentimes the people who have the scariest experiences because they don't know the rules or they didn't heed the warnings or take someone seriously when they were talking about, oh, like I had something on my property. It would knock on my doors at night or whatever. Listen to what people have to say. Just assume that it's real. It's true. Right. Even if you don't believe it deep down, follow the rules. It's better
to just believe someone else's belief in a place that you are unfamiliar with, right? Like, why question it? Why put yourself at risk?
Yeah, don't put yourself at risk.
It makes me want to do, instead of doing hiking the whole trail, it would be really fun to do a 2 Girls, 1 Ghost like YMCA camping retreat where we rented out an entire campsite.
We've talked about this before.
With like log cabins in the Appalachias, where I admit, and I'm letting you know ahead of time, I would 100% be that person.
I was just going to say, I don't want to do it because I don't trust someone else to not go around and start knocking.
That's
and
what I would
do. Funny.
And then I would be screwed because the spirits would be like, you're mocking us. We're going to get you. There was one thing that I found about crows that I kind of thought was just one, funny, but also I think confusing. Because it was basically saying that like the number of crows that you see can signify different things. One thing could be good, one thing could be bad, and it's confusing. So I wanted to just read what they meant, and it almost feels like it encompasses everything we just talked about Appalachia, where it's a little confusing, a little uncertain. Is something good? Is something bad?
It's a place that you're forced to trust your own intuition.
Right. So if you see one singular crow, it is supposed to be an omen that bad news is coming your way. But if you see 2 crows, it means joy and good luck. If you see 3, it means there's a wedding coming, maybe not yours, but in your life. 4 crows signifies a birth or major change. 5 could mean sickness. 6 equals wealth. So you like might think
the more crows, the better.
6, but it actually is 5, right?
Yeah.
And then 7 means there's a secret or a mystery. 8 means sadness. 9 is thought to bring love or passion. And then 10 crows means a significant change is coming. And if you see me with all million crows, it means run.
Yes, you're screwed. Dun dun.
Sabrina and her crows. I would love to be the crowing. Oh, actually, this one I really liked. If your foot itches, it could be a sign of a long journey ahead. If your nose itches, it's a sign that someone like company is coming. And then if your ear itches, it's kind of like is your ear ringing? Someone's talking about you.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So many of the ones in this book were the same as the New England superstitions too, which made me realize that it wasn't necessarily all the things that have been created and conjured based on living specifically in this place, but rather so many of the beliefs brought over by people, a little melting pot of superstitions.
Exactly. That have evolved and been spread throughout the US, through communities, through families, through generations, have been passed down. I mean, it's beautiful.
And also Appalachia is terrifying.
Yeah.
So next week and the week after, be prepared to be scared.
And I have a listener story.
Oh, great. Me too. I forgot.
I forgot that we have them. But to tantalize your ears, because we are touching you with our words.
With our verbs and our adverbs and our nouns and our adjectives.
So I have a story from our listener, Mikey, and it is called Appalachian Encounter Story. I was stalked. Hello to my favorite ghostesses. I've recently been binge watching your podcast episodes on YouTube and have been loving your follower story videos. So I'm sending my own encounter with a video.
Love this. Ooh, what's the video?
To start off, my name is Mikey, and I used to work as a kennel attendant in Pennsylvania near the Appalachian Mountains, where I also live and have lived my entire life. It just started ringing. Do you hear that?
Someone's talking about you.
Oh my gosh. Who are you? It better be good.
Cue the fight.
Where I worked was down at the base of the mountains, but it's still surrounded by woods. We don't get nearly as much activity here as the people who live further up the mountains, but we definitely have our fair share of critters and sounds and things that go bump in the night. So I worked as a kennel attendant for a dog breeder, and my job was mostly outdoors, and the property is surrounded by woods. I also worked the night shift. Lucky me. My dogs.
Lucky us. Unlucky you. Lucky us.
Yeah. My dogs at work love to bark and howl for no reason, or most of the time they were barking at our resident kennel cats, which were next door, or a deer passing by. But this one night was like any other, except I felt like I was being watched. Obviously, working with animals, I was in fact being watched because the animals were looking at me and I knew that. But this feeling was different. And it was like a feeling in my gut telling me something was wrong. It felt like I was being stalked. This was and still is a regular occurrence for me. Luckily, I am very well informed of the rules in Appalachia. So I decided it would be best for me to just go about my night and pay no attention to it. I locked my eyes to the ground and just kept on working. I do carry protection on me, especially at work. It's a spell jar that I usually wear around my neck with crystals in my pocket. As I was inside one of the outdoor kennels, I started hearing somebody calling out for one of my dogs by name. And of course, it was the dog whose kennel I was currently standing in. Another thing I should mention is that I worked alone at night.
God.
There was only one kennel attendant there at time, and the only person there was my boss, who was disabled and rarely ever left her house. And I did not recognize the voice at all, nor could I tell where it was coming from. It sounded exactly how people usually describe the voices they hear in the Appalachia. Almost human, but not quite. The one thing I did know was that the voice sounded like it was getting further away, which around here usually means that it's actually getting closer.
That's another thing. If it sounds really close, it's actually further away.
Yeah, just terrifying.
Nothing is quite as it seems.
Yes. All of a sudden, everything went dead silent. The dogs even went silent. The cicadas stopped screeching. I knew I was in deep shit at this point. I was still shut inside of this kennel run and I didn't know what else to do, so I stayed frozen and I tried to make myself as uninteresting as possible. All of a sudden, the silence was broken by the sound of footsteps and they were circling me. I pulled out my phone and started recording. The video attached to this email is what I caught on camera that night. And I know for a fact this was not a deer. I would have been able to see the deer's eyes with my flashlight and the dogs would have been barking because they love to bark at deer. Not to mention, it is fairly easy to distinguish the difference in footsteps from a 4-legged animal to a 2-legged person. It sounded like a wobbly human footsteps, like someone was drunk or had a limp. And it was weird because it was like walking away. The footsteps eventually stopped. I walked calmly yet swiftly back inside to finish my chores for the night. And needless to say, I sped a tad while driving home that night. Thank you for taking the time to read this. I've attached the video. It's hard to hear, but if you focus, you can hear footsteps faintly. A day or two after this encounter, I was at work again when something growled at me from the tree line. I hope you ladies enjoyed. I absolutely love the podcast. Keep up the amazing work. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you on the other side. With love, Mikey. And we'll play the video.
It's like a little bit of time will pass and then you'll hear what almost sounds like a couple steps being taken.
Yeah, which is even creepier because it's like
they're trying to hide and then
right.
Close distance,
and the
maybe.
Wind sounds terrifying.
Yeah.
And you can also, Mikey's breathing. You can tell she's terrified.
Yeah. Okay, I'm glad Mikey made the distinction about it sounding not quite like a real voice, like close enough to a voice, but not really.
Mm-hmm.
Because at first I was like, oh, well, to do a positive spin, maybe it's like a deceased relative coming to visit the dog that
I thought you were going to say that the dog learned how to speak.
Maybe that too. I don't know. We did recently read about a cat that spoke.
That's true, but I feel like this is not that.
No, this is
the Appalachians.
If a dog barks at night.
No, it didn't.
No, it didn't. Don't go looking for spirits. I have an email. This is called Weird Happenings on My Family Farm in the Appalachian Mountains. Hey, ladies. I just ran across your podcast a few weeks ago and I absolutely love listening to you guys. I do want to forewarn you, this consists of multiple experiences from myself as well as from other family members. So grab your blankets, get cozy, and enjoy the stories.
Okay.
As some backstory, my family owns roughly 800 acres of land consisting of rolling hills and farmland in the southeastern part of Kentucky.
Okay,
right.
Bragging.
I know. That sounds really nice.
Yeah.
Right inside the Appalachian Mountains.
I found where we're going to do our camp.
Invite us over, Destiny.
It's our destiny.
Oh my gosh, we were meant to be together. Most of this land was passed down for centuries, and my grandfather added to the amount of land as years went on. So this first story is about an unknown animal. And warning, there is talk of animal death.
Okay.
To begin, I want to start with a story that's not very scary, but still makes me scratch my head to this day. When I was about 10, and for reference, I'm 21 now, me and my cousin used to stay with my grandparents at their farm during the week while our parents were at work. We have grandparents straight from a fairy tale. Very kind, very soft-spoken. It's the typical Kentucky family farm with its fair share of goats and pigs and cows and chickens. Dream.
Truly. Stop bragging.
Dream world. Well, this particular week, my grandfather, my papa, kept finding mauled animals. If I can remember correctly, it was a few dead chickens as well as a couple dead cows.
This does remind me of Pie's story that she shared on Campfire Stories.
Mm-hmm. To find dead chickens isn't so unusual as chicken hawks, opossums, coyotes, and the occasional stray dog could make a laying hen a fairly easy meal. However, finding a dead adult cow was extremely unusual because cows typically stay in a herd and protect one another, particularly the calves, which can make for an easy meal if there's a pack of coyotes and then they go for the baby. But not only that, if a herd of cows gets scared, they can easily trample humans, let alone small coyotes or large dogs.
It's also interesting how many animals are being slaughtered. It's almost like it's not
there's
about
2 cows too.
It's like not about food source. It's about marking your territory.
Yeah. Because of the loss of these large animals, my papa believed that maybe it was a bear. We get very few around these parts, but it does occasionally happen. Later that week, when I was getting picked up from my grandmother's, the chickens began to squawk and rustle as if something had scared them. And because my papa believed that it very well could be a bear, he picked up his gun, he told us kids stay inside, and he went down to chase this animal. And side note, my grandfather is not a killer in the slightest. He typically brings his gun to shoot a warning shot and scare whatever it is bothering his animals. And then he likes to cage and relocate some smaller critters that might get into the chickens. So a few short minutes later, you hear the warning shot, and my papa scrambles through the door as if something was chasing him. My papa exclaims that he saw a very large, bony, hunchback, dog-like animal with no hair and bowed-in legs. He said it was unlike anything he'd ever seen before.
Like Dogman?
Yeah, or like a
SW?
Windy Boy.
Yeah.
Or, yeah. He said it was hunched over on all fours, eating away at a chicken behind the coop. He fired a warning shot in the air, and the animal looked over its shoulder and ran away as a dog would. But what startled my grandfather to run away himself was its bright, peering yellow eyes that looked back at him before it scurried off into the woods, never to be seen again.
Well, thank goodness it was never seen again.
I know.
It worked scaring it off.
Now for my dad's story. My dad is an entrepreneur, and he became physically disabled years ago from working in the blue-collar industry, doing hard labor, which eventually led to irreversible back problems. Because of this, he was no longer able to get a normal job. In 2012, he ultimately decided to start his own stockyard business to sell animals and other small items. Him, as well as my cousins, decided to build a huge building with over 100 10-by-5 rooms to hold animals waiting to be shown, with a large center to show the animals. Picture a storage unit, but made of some old wood and half-walled barn doors lining the walls.
Sounds kind of pretty.
It does. So this building we would call the barn. It was roughly 3 miles down the gravel road and about 15 minutes from town, but only 1 mile from my parents' house. I have a lot of good memories in the barn. My birthday parties.
I truly was thinking like this would be, it's almost like how people make wedding venues, that like rustic barn.
I was thinking Footloose.
Of course.
Playing hide and seek with my friends. It was just such a wonderful place to hang out with people. The very back hall, however, always felt sort of creepy and heavy. Throughout the building, a couple creepy things have happened. One time, for example, my dad was building the rooms in the back hall with my cousins and my brother when the boys got hungry and decided to go to my dad's house to grab a quick lunch. My dad decided to stay and finish up a few odds and ends with a couple of the rooms, and the boys left, and he spent some time building before he began to hear some footsteps and then doors slamming every now and then. My cousins and brothers are always joking with my dad, so of course he thought it was just them playing a little prank. Well, it continued for a little bit longer before my dad finally heard the footsteps coming down a side hall, so he hid around the corner as the footsteps drew closer so that he could pop out and scare them. He popped out, and after he did, he saw nothing was there to greet him. Later on, he heard the boys pull up on their four-wheelers, and he met them outside and asked them if one of them had stayed to play a prank on him. And to their surprise, they said that they were all eating lunch at the house. No one else was in this building. And of course, other things started to happen, such as things going missing, footsteps, hearing someone walking down the hall, the occasional slamming door. So this prompted my mom to do some in-depth research of the property that we put the barn on. And she found out that this exact place that we put the barn was an ancient Indian burial ground.
Damn.
So after this building was completed, the auction business wasn't really booming during winter time. And because of all of the weird things and the research my father started doing, he became really interested in haunted attractions. So 3 years later, in 2015, he started a haunted house attraction inside of this barn.
Stop. Tell me it still happens every year because we
Adopt
need
us.
to. Oh,
Destiny.
Seriously.
Can we be your cousins?
You won't even know that we're there. You have so much land.
No, you'll know I'm there.
Because you'll be with the cows.
I'm going to be waking up with grandma. What are we making for breakfast? I'll put the coffee on, greet the chickens, hug the cows. Okay, my parents, still skeptical about the paranormal, didn't know too much about this. They truly did it so us kids could have some fun running around and scaring people. We didn't really think that the attraction would last long or be really that popular in the area that we live in. But because there isn't a whole lot for kids to do, it became very popular during Halloween time. We soon started to call our ghost Charlie. He would do fun and playful things like stealing stuff, casting his shadow across the walls. So we thought Charlie was really fun. But then, a couple years later, there were some grown adult workers running out of the barn crying that they had seen a little boy in a plaid shirt standing at the end of the back of the barn, staring at them, and this sort of black, distorted figure with red eyes on the ceiling.
Oh.
At this point, we decided, yeah, this might not be a ghost. Something is feeling wrong. We called in a medium to see if they could see what was happening to our barn, and maybe we invited something worse than our fun ghost Charlie.
Right. Especially when you make it a haunted house. Like, what are you welcoming?
And people are coming in with the energy that is
fear.
In energy that is easy to feast on if you're this dark entity.
Oh, yeah.
When the medium came with her team, we were skeptical of her. We had never thought of someone communicating with the dead. However, she knew things about every one of us that no one else knew.
This is cool. I want to know more about this medium.
I know. Yeah, give us her name.
And let us live on your land.
What's for dinner?
It's rent-free, right?
She knew about my mom's health issues, about deceased family members, and about how a couple of us had spirits attached to us.
Whoa.
She convinced us pretty quickly that she was the real deal. And at the end of the night, she told us that the back hall did, in fact, have a demonic presence without being told anything about this hall. She also informed us that the whole property was haunted, not just the barn. And this is important later. While she walked the barn, her team walked around with EVP recorders asking questions throughout the barn. Me and a group of people followed a man who we will call M to the back hall to listen to what he got on his EVP. Once at the end of the back hall, we got a response on the recorder stating, "M is bad," over and over. We were confused and we didn't know which M they were talking about because it was a common name, and the EVP eventually went quiet. A few weeks later, M was on the news because he went to jail for manslaughter and was moving a body in a suitcase over state lines.
What the fuck? Wait, this makes me think this is a great spirit.
I know. Maybe the darkness was waiting for M because it's attached to him.
Jesus.
Like somehow knew he was going to be there. Remember how I said that knowing the whole property was haunted would be important later? Well, this is why. One night, me and my now fiance, we'll call him D, were at mine and my parents' house. My parents were out of town for the night and agreed to let him stay over. We went to go grab some pizza, and then we came home to relax and eat and watch a movie. In order to understand this next part, I have to give you an understanding of how my house is laid out. It's like a big box with a living room on one half and the kitchen and a dining room splitting the other half. And then there was a small walkway to the kitchen and a small walkway to the dining room, separated by a wall that you could still see each room from the living room. Attached to the living room, furthest from the dining room, was a hall containing my bedroom and a bathroom, and attached to the dining room, furthest from the living room, was my parents' room. After eating, I decided I was going to go clean up the living room while my boyfriend went to the bathroom. After a while of cleaning, I was walking from the living room into the kitchen when I looked to the left and I saw D walk into the dining room. I figured he was planning on scaring me, and I asked him what he thought he was doing, and I got no response. I asked again, no reply. Louder, I asked an additional time, and then I began to walk towards the kitchen when D popped out of the bathroom on the other side of the living room and asked, "What are you talking about?"
Ugh.
I froze in fear. I told D, "Check the house." I had just seen him walk into the dining room, and after further inspection of the house, we could not find anyone else there. I feel like I have 1,000 more stories to share with you, pictures, videos, but I'll leave it at this for now. See you girls on the other side. With lots of love, Destiny. Send us your pictures and videos and invite us over.
Seriously. I feel like you could be there for a minute and experience something paranormal there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, I'll never get over her grandfather's first experience of seeing that like hunched over bony,
it's out of a horror
hairless
movie.
dog like beast hunched over the chicken, just like feasting on it.
And the yellow eyes staring at him and then running off into the wilderness.
Yeah. And this thing was
then
tall.
Running off towards where Mikey was and scaring Mikey from the first story. It's the same creature. I believe it's the same creature.
Yeah, it's all so creepy. And now I'm just thinking, I'm like envisioning these poor cows.
I know. I mean, all of the wildlife although they have their own world order. They know what to do, what not to do, because animals have great instincts.
Yeah.
Trust your animals.
It does make me wonder too, when it comes to these supernatural beasts and cryptids and creatures, if there is some sort of like glamour put over them, because oftentimes when you encounter these types of creatures that I think that this is referencing, they can throw and mimic their voice, and sometimes for a moment appear to be something else. You know, like there's all those stories of people seeing a man crawling, and as it like crawls closer and closer to them, it starts to like morph into something else as it's calling out and seems less and less human. And so I am curious if the animals just see the thing for as it is, or
I feel like the animals know. They know.
They have to.
I feel like if there's anywhere in the world where you could time travel, it's the Appalachians.
Yes. There's an energy. And especially when you think about just how much the energy shifts and changes as you ascend a mountaintop. Like it feels different amongst
100%.
the tops of trees.
Yeah.
Something strange going on in the woods.
And if you see something.
No, you didn't.
But if you did, email us.
Because we want to hear about it.
We want to hear about it.
But
email
if you
us,
hear something, no, you didn't.
But email us. Please email us to twogirlsoneghost@gmail.com. And stay tuned for 2 more coming up.
Consensual.
What's the word I'm looking for?
Consecutive?
Yes. Gosh. It's not consensual because you don't know what's coming.
Yeah, but you choose to click play.
Consecutively. Why is that so hard?
Consecutively.
I need to go home.
Too bad we have to record another episode.
2 more episodes coming out consecutively about the Appalachians and ghost stories from the regions and cryptids from the regions. So stay tuned, hold on to your butts, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you to Jamie for editing this episode and the podcast, all of our episodes. And thank you to you for emailing us, for coming here and supporting us, for sending us your creepy ass Appalachian stories.
And thank you for letting us touch you with our words. We love you.
And we will see you on the other side.
Very spooky.